Hello, hello. Welcome to Tech Ascent, the podcast where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are reshaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Klingane. I'm also the founder of Ascenxion, the premier business development partner within tech. Today, joined by Munish Gandhi, the founder and CEO of Statisfy. Monish, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for taking the time.
Of
Would you
course.
mind telling the audience a little bit about what you do with Statisfy as well as a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So I'm an engineer turned entrepreneur on my second entrepreneurial journey. Prior to that, I worked with a few large companies like LinkedIn, Equinix, HP, mostly in an operations role, like helping go-to-market teams scale and grow their business. 2018, I started a company called Productiv, which is in the enterprise SaaS management space. I was the COO there. I owned all post-sales function, and that's where the inspiration for Statisfy came into play. Essentially, the way you engage with customers, you do a lot of pattern matching. What is good at pattern matching? Large language models. So 2023 is when I was inspired to start Statisfy as a platform where we try to understand everything happening with your customers so that you can, in a predictable way, drive expansion and renewals for customers. So Stratify that way is a agentic, what we call a customer intelligence platform.
Mm, very cool. Very cool. And what was the name of your first company? Productive?
Productive, yeah, without the
Productive.
E. Yes.
Nice, nice.
The
And
company has like done well, grown well. We raised from a lot of marquee investors like Excel, Norwest, IVP, 10 million plus ARR, just a strong growth, a lot of marquee logos.
yeah, nice, nice. And this being your second company, have you taken kind of lessons? Is this one a little easier to get off the ground now that you've got that experience under your belt?
I think it's easier and hard at the same time. Easier because a lot of the nuts and bolts of how do you start a company, like how do you incorporate the vast array of functions that you need to be good at. For example, we are signing customers, we need to get a security certification, we need to know how do we go back and forth with procurement on contracts, how do you run a payroll. So there are so many small things that are required to run a company. So that is all very familiar. I had no idea how to do any of those things for the first company. At the same time, doing it the second time around, there are a lot of lessons that you are always trying to deploy for the second one. And then you set yourself higher goals around growth, around landing product market fit fast, around capital efficiency. So those are three things that I'm constantly trying to do, where this is more fun but also harder because as somebody like most of the entrepreneurs are competitive, so I want to do better than myself, so I make it harder for myself.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And especially you stepping in from now you're in the CEO role
Yeah.
as opposed to the COO role. What's your kind of differences in the day to day, especially when it comes to guiding the company and making yourself competitive?
Yeah, I think so. The CEO role, right? The way I think about it is that the buck stops with you. Like, what does the CEO do? Like, the number one, you're setting the strategy, which is very clearly thinking through what are we trying to do, and in a repeated way, articulate it over and over again so everybody gets it, right? Second is that you need to set the company for success by making sure we are resourcing the right way, right? So like we have a strategy, but for example, what goes into engineering, sales, marketing. So that's the second part. I think the third thing that is very critical for the CEO is to be the public face of the company so that others want to engage with you. So those are three things that are fundamental to the CEO role, where I spend most of my time on. The COO role in the previous company was pretty much supporting the CEO to do all those things well. Now I own a lot of functions there in my previous company, like post sales, finance, legal, etc. But end of the day, the decisioning sits with the CEO.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And no, being the face of the company, good job hopping on the podcast then. We'll make it a little easier. Sure
Yes.
the audience is loving it so far. And Manishi, obviously you're a fairly new company
Yeah.
moving into the AI space. How has that kind of competitive landscape shifted maybe in this company as compared to what you're seeing with your first one?
I think the biggest impact of AI that I see is that everything is running much faster. You develop software faster. Your competitors also develop software faster. So basically, the market landscape is much more dynamic than it used to be, let's say, 3 years, 5 years ago. So therefore, you need to be much more nimble, and then because everybody has access to similar models. So a lot of times people ask me like, "What is your competitive edge?" Like, that is a fundamental question that you need to think about. And our competitive edge is that we deeply understand our customer and their workflows. And technology, end of the day, is a tool to meet a customer need, a specific customer need. AI makes it faster, easier, much more tangible, ROI is greater. But if you're not solving the right problem, then you're just a cool toy and nobody is going to use it, right? So there are some companies which look at what is the latest model and then think about, now what problem can I apply to? Nothing wrong with building that way, but we are not that. We are all about, here's a problem that we want to solve. It has been validated by hundreds of conversations I've had with prospects. Now, what is the best tool to solve that problem? So we always are looking at the best models coming out through different foundation model companies, be it OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, etc., and then say, what's the best model to apply for this problem? Because essentially, we are trying to get sharper, on how we solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing being in the space is there's a lot of companies, like you said, AI is obviously booming at the minute, so there's a big influx of companies, big influx of competitions, and for a lack of better words, I like this metaphor, there's a lot of companies that are coming into the space promising unicorns and delivering donkeys, so to say. So over-promising, under-delivering on a lot of solutions to a lot of problems. How, with Statisfy, are you going about kind of breaking through that noise, solidifying yourself as somebody that can deliver on what you say you're going to deliver on?
Yeah, so for us, it comes back to the customer, right? Let's make sure that we're delivering the right customer value. So I still spend a lot of time with customers. Our product is early, requires a lot of shaping. And with AI, on one hand, building software has become easier, faster. On the other hand, adopting software has become harder because it requires a fundamental shift of mindset, in the sense that, what I used to do earlier, I have to think about how does my work change. So AI is taking over specific tasks. It's not taking over jobs, not yet for sure, in my opinion, but it's taking over a lot of your tasks. So for example, we are in this meeting, right? So we have a note taker product. For years, you have taken a lot of pride in how good notes you take from a meeting. Now I tell you, hey, don't need to take notes. We'll do that for you. Such a massive behavior change. I don't feel that somebody can just substitute, a task I've done, which I've taken years to perfect. Right? So that's a mindset. And then it sets you back because when you take notes in a meeting, you're not as present in a meeting, right? Because you are like half your job essentially in a meeting is to take notes. Now you're delegating that to AI. Similarly, like after a meeting is over, you're sending somebody a pithy email. Now, typically you write it yourself. Now, how do you say, okay, I'm comfortable AI taking over that job? Because it has the same context, it has the same learning. So the years of learning I've had in note taking and sending customer emails, AI actually has to have that, already has that. So it's a mindset shift, right? Because my job is shifting and I don't want my job to change because I've taken years to perfect that job. So that's why even though solutions are coming much faster, adoption is harder in AI because it requires a bigger shift on habits that we have built over years and years. Versus if you think about like cloud, because I always think about like AI versus cloud, what's different? When cloud came in, large scale quote unquote digital transformation, then we were automating paper-based processes with web-based forms, etc. That was actually much easier transition in some ways once the technology got better because people were frustrated with paper. Mm-hmm. So that was easier. Now with existing cloud-based technologies, people have actually figured out how to work with them over the last 15, 20 years. So when you are happy with something, then it's a much more difficult transition. So that's why I think the AI adoption is still nowhere close to AI, technologies that exist out there.
Hmm. And without giving away the secrets of the show, how are you going about kind of educating prospects of the benefits of adopting AI and kind of educating them on that sense?
Absolutely. So look, most of the times, if you look at the current generation of technologies, they have been optimized to capture human input through forms, right? And that's where they stop saying, okay, you collect all the data so that you can look at it and then decide what to do. Our simple approach is that you don't have to capture any data. Data exists, whether it's in meetings, emails. We have a tool which is used by post-sales teams in a B2B setting. So whether it's your product usage data, any support engagement, any surveys. So all the customer engagement data, how customers are using your product is available. A human's job is not to capture data. A human job is to act on that data. And like where we come into play as a platform, one is we aggregate all the data. Second is we then figure out what is the health of the customer and what is the right next best action to take. So going into 5 different systems, figuring out what is happening, what to do, we have taken over all that job. Now what we want our customers to do is take the recommendation and act on it, because it still requires some level of convincing someone to do something different. So to like driving behavior change across customers, that's a very human job. How do you take some best practices, educate someone, incent them to act? So that is where, it's a very, very big mind shift. We are not competing on, we have the best user interface to capture human data. We are not competing on, hey, we do health in a very AI, we have the best formula builder for you to calculate things. We are like, actually, we are a platform which aggregates data. We are a platform which generates recommendations, very, very AI first, a lot of modeling we do behind the scenes. Your job is to act on things. And then people are like, wow, but unless I trust what you're recommending, how can I act on it? So that is where, we build a lot of explainability in our product. Like when we recommend something, for example, when we say, the relationship strength on this account is weak. Now, why is it weak? Because I and Oliver, we talk every 2 weeks. We always have good conversations. But then Oliver is not the VP. He's not a decision maker. You have not met a decision maker on this account for the last 9 months. There was some transition that happened at a management level. So the relationship strength is weak. So that's an insight that we are providing. And then we're saying, your job is now to work with Oliver to figure out who's the new sheriff in town, so that you can build a relationship with that person as well. Because you may have a great relationship with somebody who is a daily user of a product, but if you don't have a line of sight to the decision maker, you may actually churn, because the new sheriff in town may have a bias on one of your competitor products. So those are the kinds of insights, right? So basically, what we need to do to drive behavior change is to provide very, very good explainability. So people are not left wondering, like we say our health score is 67, which is you have to do something about it. So we don't tell you 67. We say, this is why things are the way they are. This is what you should do about it.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. It's a good way to look at it. And like you said, there's obviously a lot of moving pieces. Somebody new comes into a company, changes the whole dynamic of the relationship, but we can build out some consistency with that nowadays. And at a higher level in terms of adoption across the AI space, we'll look at it like a curve almost. Where do you feel we are on this adoption curve? Obviously, AI is almost the elephant in every room. Everybody kind of knows about it to this point, but like you said, there's still people that you've got to change your habits sometimes to adopt it.
Yeah.
Where do you feel we are on that curve, and what are you kind of seeing on that front?
So there's some very intuitive use cases where AI has really taken over. So for example, coding, generating content, to some extent legal, both like vertical use cases, horizontal use cases. Some have taken hold, and more people are starting to lean in. Support, how do you handle support volume, right? So there are like 3-4 use cases, but it's interesting that the more people you talk to, you hear the same 3-4 things over and over and over again, because those are the easy, intuitive use cases. Where adoption is still lacking is where there are deeper workflows, because you need more intelligence, more inference to automate those workflows. And like our approach has been that unless you understand more deeply workflows, you cannot build the right technology to automate those. And they also have to be flexible. So simple use cases like when a standard support case comes in, like let's say I am a Logitech mouse company and then my mouse is not working, then there are five things which can go wrong. You can automate that. But if it's a much more complicated use case, saying I have this unique configuration, I am trying to accomplish this objective, but I'm getting stuck here. So those require much deeper workflow understanding of configuration, etc. That adoption, the technology is still catching up. People are still catching up for that. Like so simple use cases, adoption is starting to like tech itself is always the first adopter of tech. So tech companies definitely, for support, marketing, use cases are leaning in very, very heavily around code generation. Those are the three core use cases. Everything else is taking time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And with Statisfy, what do you think's been the biggest challenge of you kind of growing the business in the current space?
I think the biggest challenge, one is of course the behavior change aspect of things. Right, people are so set in their current ways that it requires convincing, nudging that the world's changing and you need to catch up to that. So I think that, and we always get compared where this is how the world works today. How are you better? And our fundamental assertion is that the way the world works today is changing. So, for example, again, I'll take you the very simple example of why is like how can your health be better than the formula that I configured? We have to convince people we do not do formulaic health because humans cannot understand data point beyond 2 or 3. Like ours is a multi-factor model. We consume a lot of data. We automatically create health. So if you're not bought on that premise, we are not the right solution for you. Right? Because you're trying to fight for a solution that you're so invested in that you're not able to see the future. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think net where we are seeing is that like creating more awareness about what we do, how is it different, how the way you have evaluated technology in the past is fundamentally not the right way to evaluate technology. We are a very pilot-first company because we would love people to get their hands on our product. Because even though it slows down sales cycles, we have to do a lot of work to get the pilot instance set up and get someone on, going, etc. But people have to experience the difference, and that's when they start to lean in. So I think that for me has been, like a big learning on how do we continue to accelerate how people experience the future faster so they become believers, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's a great strategy. And there's a lot of companies out there that are struggling to kind of break through that noise, get their foot in the door because they don't have that sort of confidence in their product to say demo first, pilot first, and then give it a go. So it's
I think back to what you were saying earlier, right? Whatever unicorn valuation, but like a donkey product, like that's very much against it. We very deeply look at what are people using our product for, where are they getting stuck, where are they not believing in the recommendations that we are making. So how do we provide better explainability, for example? I mean, that's a big thing we are trying to do. How do we continue to improve the accuracy and relevance of the recommendations that we are making, right? So it's like better, never best. That approach, like AI is actually, to in my belief, a lot of like better, never done, never best, because like some of the recommendations in the product 6 months ago were like 60-65% accurate. Now we're getting to 85-90% accuracy, and then we don't stop there. We want to get to 97-98% accuracy, because that's when people really start to rely, saying, okay, these parts of my job I don't need to worry about anymore. AI is going to take that over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's growth, it's compounding, obviously new technology, so it's good to hear that you're scaling it the right way. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier about how important customer feedback is when it comes to genuine problem solving, because you want to make sure you're moving in the right direction, and if you're not, customers aren't afraid to tell you. They'll be the first ones. So
Absolutely.
Awesome. And Munish, we can start to wrap up now, but looking ahead, what's the goals for Statisfy over the next, say, 12 months? What's the goals for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so first, I think that threefold. Everything starts with product for us. So on the product front, like we just launched a new agentic framework. We call it like a workflow studio. So you can create any kind of automation workflows. So for example, after the meeting, classify the meeting as whether it's a troubleshooting meeting, whether it's a business review, etc. And based on what kind of meeting it is, start to automate different kind of activities, right? So this is the kind of feature that we have launched. Now we need to land this with a lot of our customers, where we say, okay, end-to-end task automation we can do through AI. Very, very custom for a specific customer. That's the first goal. Second goal is continue to expand our customer base. So we started the company focusing more on commercial mid-market customers, 500 to 2,000 employees. But now we're trying to go up market to the enterprise. Product has matured. So landing 10 amazing customer logos, that's our goal. And third is just building the team. Like it's very, very important when you are growing, rapidly scaling, that you always stay close to your values. You always keep reminding employees that, look, this is how we grow together. This is why we came together. And we have a unique way of operating, which is different from other companies. So as we are rapidly scaling the business, reinforcing that, finding mechanisms to reinforce that. As like right now I talk to all the customers. So as I start to step away, then how do we make sure that the same customer obsession, the need to understand deeply, are we solving customer values? Like how do we systematize it? Right? One of our core values is joy. Like I think we all choose to work together. So how do we make sure that we don't get to a culture where we do not trust each other? Like joy comes from trust. Like I enjoy working here because I can trust people I work with. So how do we systematize that? So the values part, I think for me, is very, very important. Like everyday matters is one of our values, which is, don't wait for somebody else to solve any problem. Take ownership. Make sure that you go for that. So those are the three big goals: land product, land customers, make sure we continue to reinforce our culture.
Awesome. No, I love it. Big goals, especially stepping in the CEO role. I'm sure you're going to execute. You got a good way to steer the ship for Statisfy.
Awesome.
But Munish, that's all I got for you today. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great conversation so far. And I'll be sure to tag everything down in the description, but is there anything specific you want to shout out of where the people can find you?
Yeah, I think definitely find me on LinkedIn. That's the place where I hang out the most. It's on, or you can look us up on statisfy.com. That's statisfy.com. I'll leave you with one fun story. So the name of the company, which is Statistics plus Satisfy, that's how we got it. But how I got to the name of the company was I went on a walk with my 13-year-old, and she was asking, Dad, what are you building? Tell me about it. And then I was like describing, this is like before we started the company. This is the idea. This is why the world's changing and all. And she said, okay, how can I help? I was like, I'm still thinking about what should I name the company. So she's basically, said, okay, Dad, you should call it Statisfy, Statistics plus Satisfaction. That is what you're doing. So of course she keeps bugging me about where's my equity.
Yeah.
But I think that's just like a fun story. So just, as entrepreneurs, we're all storytellers, but it's fun to hear back from others as to what they internalize about the story they hear.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. You,
Okay.
you better watch he doesn't sue you for the rights.
All right. Okay, very nice catching you. Take care.
Munish, it was great speaking with you. Thank you for coming on. And for everybody listening, like I said, we'll be sure to tag everything from Munish's LinkedIn and Statisfy down in the description. Thank you for tuning in. And Munish, thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Take care. Bye now.